Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with Mark Hattas, entrepreneur, mental health advocate, and author. Hi, everyone. I'm Lorianne. I am the host of Bleep Bulimia, and today I have Mark Hattas with me, and he is a mental health advocate, entrepreneur, and author of his upcoming book, Prisoner of War. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Lorianne. Thank you.
Likewise. So I know that, you're the entrepreneur, you've done a lot on that front, but we were also talking about mental health. How did you go about becoming an advocate for mental health?
So back in 2010, I had the good fortune of selling a business that I started a dozen years prior, and went through just reorienting, like, what do I do now? My identity was so wrapped up in my company, and I was nothing in my eyes without the business. Now, I didn't know that. I wasn't consciously having that thought. I just felt like I was seeking. I wanted something else. And I went, 16 days on a trip to Israel, and I started investing in a number of different, ventures, trying to get involved to be important. And it was around September of the following year, 2011, that my world started to just really show up very differently. And the medical world calls it mania, but walls were moving, and I was hearing voices, and I was behaving differently. My thoughts were very different than I was accustomed to. I had a miraculous healing that had happened, where it literally felt like invisible hands were in my back, repairing an injury, and then lifted me up with no one else in the room. So just some odd things, which I found to be quite interesting as I was going through it. But there were also some frightening parts of it. And after a week of this, my wife became very, very concerned and called the paramedics one night when things got to a level where they were at a crisis. And I'm thankful she did, though at the time I didn't feel that way. She did the right thing. And I ended up in the behavioral health hospital for about a week. And then at the end of the week, my doctor said, there's no cure for this. You'll be on medication the rest of your life. And the most they had learned, as I inquired, he said the most they had learned about the brain was really in the 90s. That was kind of a recent breakthrough. And I left dejected. I left emotionally just drained. Like, what's my life going to be like? And I had done a number of things during that manic week that in a normal minded state were not things I would have done. So it was a very challenging time. Friends and family distanced themselves, or I distanced myself, not sure quite which one it was, but it was a very big challenge. And that lasted for about 3 years, in and out of the hospital and navigating that. And when I got well, thankfully, and I've been off medication for 6+ years, I've been really healthy, and I found tools and resources that really served me. There was really nothing else that I wanted to do except for find ways of getting these materials and educating and teaching and bringing this to people so that they could find their path to well-being.
Absolutely. So that is what you're doing now, is helping people and getting the word out there. So your book coming out August 14th. Tell us a little bit about that. That must be exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. It is all about mental health. It's a fictional story, and there's a little backstory. Could I share the backstory to it?
Please do. Yes.
So I started really feeling healthy in 2014 and 15, and it was the fall of 2015. And my son, who's now almost 16, he was 9 at the time. He said, "Hey, Dad, would you share a story with me?" And so I'm like, yeah, sure. And we have 5 children. He's our youngest of 4 boys, and then our daughter's a few years younger than he is. And Liz, my wife, was tucking Sophie in, and so I think he was sort of like, hey, I'm feeling a little left out, would you share a story with me? So for the first handful of nights that he would ask me, I was coming up with a story. I'm just racking my brain like, okay, well, I told a story about a turtle last night. What will it be tonight? And one night, after I was feeling empty on stories, I heard this inner voice, and it was in my, it was sort of an interruption to my thoughts. And the voice said, don't tell him a story, allow the story to come. And Lorianne, it was the most unusual thing I had experienced being healthy, because it would have been something that I would have associated with the manic tendency, but this was years later and I was doing really well. And I'm like, okay, so I was trusting. And the story that came out was incredible, best I had shared. But the kicker was at the end, and these stories, it was about a 16-minute story or so. At the end, I said, hey, Henry, what'd you think? Excuse me. And he gave me a thumbs up and said, Dad, that was really good, but it's just going to get better.
Oh,
I know you're just learning.
how
And I thought, wow, the wisdom of, this child, it was incredible. It was if my 9-year-old, I don't think would have come up with that on his own. It's like something spoke through him almost. I had chills. You might have chills, like, whoa. Well, anyway, it did get better. And what happened was I believe in each of us, a core essence of life force, of that, some people might call it that, the God force or whatever it is, some kind of the essence of us. And what I think happens, and happened for me, pretty confident of this at this point, is I create such a barrier that I wanted to present to the world in order to get something. I wanted to get love. I wanted to get acceptance. I wanted people to really approve of what I was doing. And that storyline created a barrier, created a separation from who I really was. And what I think happened that night is the true source of me broke through and came out. And it was sort of this opening of, wait, that's who I am. I want more of that. And it really accelerated my development. And one of the things that occurred is writing. So I write through either typing, or I'll speak a book, or a number of different ways. But this particular book is a matured version of some of my earlier stories. And it's called Prisoner of War. In January of 2021, this year, or February, I had this meditative insight: schedule 3 hours a day for 8 days. And I did, and just write. And the only thing I had was this title, Prisoner of War. And what was interesting is I would sit down day one and I wrote. And at the end of chapter 1, I got this paragraph that was a summary of what chapter 2 would be. And it just flowed and flowed and flowed. It just really was effortless and a lot of fun. And I found the story to be fascinating because it takes place in 2032. And the storyline is that there's a global pandemic in mental illness, that it's almost questioned whether it's contagious. And so globally, we're having this huge, massive issue with mental health. And there are many efforts from the governments to try to find solutions. And they find a really interesting approach to addressing it. And what I call that is a manufactured technology. So there's this manufactured technology that the governments have built and they start deploying. And then but there's also this whole faction of people who are resistant to it, and they go down this path of developing a human technology. And so we get to see the storyline of how the human technology and the manufactured technology, how they play out together. And it's rough and fun, and it inspires hope. And that's the intention, is that when people read this, they're entertained, but also realize, like, wait, maybe, and I've had people who've had bipolar and other mental health challenges read it, and they said, you know what your book did is it gave me permission to explore some things that I was afraid to explore. And that's really meaningful, because that's a huge issue. There's a huge issue that people have because maybe they tried something that didn't work, right? Or they were told that they couldn't do something because there's so much fear that if they did that, then they'd get broken again, or they'd go back to the issue that they had. And with your audience, you know, dealing with a number of different dynamics with the bulimia and things of that nature, one of the areas that we can all see is like, that's universal, that fear of, well, oh my gosh, will it happen? You know, what's the trigger? And so I think this book is really something that could be supportive in a lighter way. I mean, it does deal with a heavy topic, but it deals with it in a futuristic way so you can see it from a distance, but also it's going to resonate as, wait, this is real, this is true.
Wow. And you're absolutely right. And a lot of the things that you spoke about on the onset is that, and when you were talking about that, you know, energy or whatever that was, we do separate, and being bulimic, because of course I was for 30 years, there's a certain distancing, and as much as you want to be loved, you can't, and a lot of us feel unlovable.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult. And of course, you're going against your values because there's some lying in there, and you have to. And so, if you're lying and it goes against your values, there's even worse as far as, you know, the mental health side of things and how you feel about yourself. So, a lot of what you said, definitely, I know that my listeners would be able to connect with on that front. Interesting, though, that you're writing about a pandemic on mental health, because we kind of do have a little bit of one now that's happening post-COVID, where people, I know our government in Canada put together programs that people could access at no charge, 12-week programs to help them out. And they basically paid for it so that they could try
Wow.
to reduce that. Yeah. So it's covered under our health, like OHIP is what we have here in Ontario. And
are you aware of people that have gone through them? Are they effective?
I went through one. I decided to go ahead and do that too, because I thought it would be helpful, because even I've been recovered for 11 years, but even after recovery, full recovery, there's the other side of it, and how to deal with your emotions without that go-to, right? So as much as I've done really well, I do struggle with anxiety. So this COVID did bring my anxiety back, and I hadn't had it in 8 years, but I thought, better deal with it now. So it was very effective. Mine was all online, which was interesting, and mostly it's all in writing, and I love writing. So it worked out really well, but it did help me. I don't know that helps everybody, but if you're open to it and do the work that they tell you to do, definitely it does help. And I thought it was a great thing for them to do. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We actually have, our government does not do that in the States. But one of the programs that we created is called Optimal Being, and it's a 16-week online program, and it's self-study plus live components. And the key is to help people reconnect with that, you know, that life force, right? And that's it. It's like, if we can help people remember the optimal nature of who they are, you know, that's and then give tools so that when the stress is up, when the anxiety is there, those tools can become automatic. And they're simple, but they're effective, and they've been around for, you know, forever. You know, these aren't new tools, but they're tools that, boy, these should be taught in 3rd grade or kindergarten, and they're not. And one of the things I heard someone say boy, I wish I could remember the gentleman's name, but he used the word mental hygiene, mental and emotional hygiene. And I thought that was so appropriate because we're taught how to brush our teeth and, clean our bodies and, take care of, the physical, but we're not taught about how to deal with anger and sadness and, emotions in a real healthy way. And so if we could imagine not brushing our teeth for 20 years because we didn't know that that was a thing to do, our teeth aren't going to be in good shape. Well, same thing with our mental and emotional bodies. If we don't deal with things in a way that's really healthy, then it's going to build and build and build. And then it takes a little bit longer to take care of things. But that's one of the things that's great to hear that Canada's doing that. It's something we believe, like, hey, if we can get tools in people's hands early, then we believe that we can actually prevent a lot of the issues in mental health, because it's really, I think, well said with the idea of taking care of things in the moment now. And we don't have to go seeking for it. We don't have to go digging for it because our experience of life is going to bring it to us. It's going to bring it up. And the cool thing about human beings is we're designed so beautifully that it's gentle. If we're willing and we're allowing the system to really work properly, it could be a real gentle unwinding of some of the trauma and the hurt and the pain and the, in some cases, abuse, self-abuse or others, and to really get to a place where healing is possible and then sustaining that. It's a key point of what our mission is sustain mental health.
I agree with that too. It's like if they could put in the schools and even to build the awareness for children. I mean, my son came to me and he was in his 20s and we were talking about anxiety. He says, I didn't know. He says, I got it from you, Mom. But he said, I didn't realize. I said, yeah. I said, I struggled. My father, I did not know until I was in my 40s that he had struggled with anxiety as well, but never showed it, never spoke about it. And it's to be aware of that so that, again, my son thought that he was weird, that, what is this? I don't know what this is. Just the awareness to know what they might be going through and to even give them, like you said, the tools, at least to start with, so that they don't sit there and wait that long before they figure out that there's something that probably needs help. Right. So,
right.
But no, that's great. I think that just in regards to your tools, so where would they connect with you to be able to learn more about that?
So that program is called Optimal Being. So optimalbeing.live, LIVE, is the URL, and optimal then BEING.
Okay. And you said that was what, 16 weeks?
It's a 16-week program. There's an assessment at the front end and the back end. And the cool thing about the assessment, we measure 10 areas of well-being. And so everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and it really focuses a person on the 3 areas out of the 10 that are going to really benefit their life. And so when they learn the tools then through the course of the weeks, they can apply them to those 3 and other areas, but those 3 are where we really give them a focal point. And it's remarkable that we've seen highly statistically significant results. And it's not just someone who's struggling with, a mental health crisis at the moment. We're bringing this into corporations, and we have leaders doing this because it's helping bring awareness that not everything that is a mental health challenge is something that's been diagnosed. It's just, like you said, so many people are out there struggling. We had an executive from a very big consultancy do a poll of their top executives, and 80% have been dealing with anxiety and depression.
Wow.
And those are the people running the company. So it's an issue. The numbers that we've seen here in the States are 4 times what they were in 2019 in terms of mental health challenges and substance abuse. I mean, the numbers are just through the roof. So what that is telling us, not too far off from prisoner of war, is though no one's out there saying there's a mental health pandemic, and certainly in the fictional setting, it goes to a pretty ridiculous degree, and something that we might say, well, that'll never happen. Well, I hope it doesn't. But there's an element of recognition that's happening in places where it was largely thought that it wasn't their place. But companies are starting to wake up to realize, hey, employees are expecting that they have some answers. And an employee assistance program where it's just a 1-800 number to call to get help. In the States, anyway, they have EAPs. I'm not sure if they have those in Canada, the employee assistance program. But it's essentially if someone needs a counselor to talk to, the employer will pay a fee for the employee population, and those employees can call in confidentially. But the utilization rate is under 7%. So it's not really, and it's usually used when someone's in trouble. You know, it's already well past the time when simple intervention could be offered. Not always, but so the opportunity is to recognize, yes, this is a real issue. I'd probably call it a pandemic, but not many others would join me in that yet. And unfortunately, it's getting worse, and we need to take action and support people before it gets to crisis.
Yeah, we do have one gentleman here, Kevin Frankish. He used to be on the Breakfast Television Show, and he has his own show now. And he literally was saying that there's going to be called this the third wave or something of the pandemic. So it's underneath that umbrella of what's gone on with COVID because of what's coming on next. So he wants to bring awareness to it, and for people to, if you're holding back because you say, no, I'm not one of them. Are you not one of them though? You know, like you have to, again, you have to be present, and you have to be aware. But that's the other thing too, it's that awareness process, right? And I like that you were saying 3 components, because if you had all 10 of them, it would be too overwhelming for someone to try and do all 10 at once. So that makes a lot of sense. And
then at the end, when they get reassessed, they get 3 more, you know, and so because we're always going to have 3 at the kind of the bottom, but we refine, use the tools and get stronger and stronger. And it's incredible, because when people really practice the tools that you know we teach in our programs, their intuition comes online. You know, they become much more confident. There's one key part that we really emphasize is retraining the brain to automatically breathe. Because right now, as you know, because you dealt with anxiety, the first thing that happens when someone's feeling anxious is they start to shut down their breath. And then when the breath shuts down, the anxiety increases, and that can turn into even full-on panic. So there's an element of breathing and feeling and just allowing the system to start to relax. It's so simple, but we're not trained to do that. And that's one of the things, like we could teach this to 5-year-olds, you know, to recognize, hey, you know, it appears that you're feeling upset or you're feeling anxious. You know, remember to really be conscious with your breathing, and it's okay to feel what you're feeling. And when someone doesn't feel like it's wrong to feel what they're feeling, and they can really start to engage the breathing. In fact, I don't even know if this is for sale, but there's a company called Leaf that I just got introduced to. I'm just going to show it because it's so crazy, beautiful, awesome. There's a new movement to create digital therapeutics, and this company, and it's Relief without the RE. Again, I'm not sure where they're at in their sales, but I know I think they're marketing them because United Healthcare, an insurer in the U.S., does reimburse for it. So it's a digital therapeutic, and this has some stickies, and and it goes on the skin, just at the lower edge of the chest. And it measures what's happening with the heart, and it's for anxiety.
Oh, wow.
And what happens is it actually vibrates when your system goes to a shallow level of heart rate and thus your breath. The anxiety device vibrates and then takes the person through, using vibration, a breath exercise. And they call that a dose.
Oh, wow.
So it's reimbursable by the insurance company, and people are getting a dose. And I just got introduced to it, but I thought, oh, that's so brilliant. And it maps with our programs, because if people had that and they became consciously aware of when their anxiety was starting, then they'd be able to do something about it prior to it getting to a level where now they're taking unhealthy actions.
That's brilliant. So for the listeners, it was a pad about the size of a palm.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's got like a rubber coated outside. I assume it's waterproof. Again, I know there's a company called Edge One Medical that helped this company get FDA approval. And so I know the owner, and he let me borrow one. So I wasn't planning on sharing that, but it's appropriate for our conversation.
Absolutely. So
isn't that incredible, though? Oh,
and something small like that is perfect. You don't have big monitors or everything all over you.
And it's like, I think he said it's like they have a base package. Let's call it $49 a month, and the more advanced one's $99 a month or something like that. But insurance helps cover it. And
nice.
Very interesting.
Thanks for sharing that. That was very, very neat.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And speaking of sharing, where can our listeners find your book?
Oh, yeah. So, you know what? They won't be able to see it if I share it in the chat, right?
No, I will have notes, though. The links will be down in the notes.
Okay, great.
So, but do you have a website particularly they could go to?
I do. Would it be okay to share it, to share with my screen? It's markhattas.com/prisoner-of-war-book.
Perfect. I will have that. I will put that into the notes.
Perfect.
For the listeners to find it. That's perfect.
And the cool thing about that too, so all along the way, Lorianne, I just keep, listening to that, inner voice, that seems to be so perfect in guiding my life. And I feel really blessed to be able to even share this book. It feels like it came through me rather than kind of like the stories I was sharing with my son. And I've listened to it a couple times. It's because I went to a studio, and it's a digital book. It's an ebook, but it's also audio. And so the audio book is, I think, extremely well produced. And we will give it to somebody for nothing, but we're asking for something. So we're asking for a donation, as you'll see on the website. But people can give whatever they'd like, and they'll get the same, book, the audio and the ebook together.
Perfect. That's lovely. That's what we do with our books too. We just ask for donations if somebody wanted to get them. So it's a nice way of doing it. But if somebody needs something, it's also nice to be able to help them out too. Really appreciate your time. This was really, really interesting. Thank you so much. And yeah, Mark, it's even that little extra that we got with the pad. That's very, very cool.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Lorianne. Thank you so much. And I appreciate, what you're doing. I know you've gone through quite a long journey to be communicating and sharing more with your listeners. And thank you for what you've done.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.